In the late 1970s, Denis Bendall was one of the great up-and-comers of the Sydney rugby league scene. A robust centre with a potent combination of speed and strength, the Holy Cross Junior looked set for a long and successful career in footy, and also held the rare distinction of being one of the first players of Asian heritage to compete in top-level rugby league. However, on the 5th of December 1979, this promising career was tragically cut short after he badly injured his spine following an accident at a lake in Sydney's Blue Mountains. There were fears that he would never walk again, but Denis defied the odds and at 65 years of age still leads an active lifestyle as an ocean swimmer on Sydney's northern beaches.
My mother's Japanese, and obviously my father he's an Australian. She was a war bride, basically. My father met her in Japan in the occupation forces after the Second World War there, and I guess fell in love and moved to Australia and had two boys, my brother Philip and myself. I guess it was probably unique to have someone with a Japanese mother playing rugby league, but I used to get a few comments now and then, but I always remember there's one story that probably hits the nail about what people say about someone from a different background. Is actually it was against the Magpies at Lidcombe Oval, and I was in the centres playing, and then West obviously had the ball and they were passing it out, and Les Boyd was out wide and he had the ball and he ran at me with the ball, and I lifted my elbow up and supposedly knocked him out, and then they scored in the corner at Lidcombe Oval there, and the linesman came in and the referee was talking to the linesman. They called me over and said, right, number 3, come over here. And I said, yeah. He said, well, elbow to the head of a player, you're off. And at that time I had to walk that running track around Lidcombe Oval there, and the abuse I received, I don't think anyone said I was a Japanese, but I was more Russian or a Chinese or a Filipino. They were calling out all these nationalities, but that was probably the only time I've ever experienced any negative aspects to being half Japanese. We'd organised an excursion with the boys who I was teaching to go out to the Blue Mountains, to Glenbrook there. What I remember about the day was it was just a very hot day, so we took them for a swim down to Jelly Bean Pool in Glenbrook, and someone had placed a rope on a tree there to swing off, and like the boys were jumping off there into the water, and so they enticed me to do it, and I remember swinging off, and then unfortunately instead of landing on my feet I must have done a 360 or a 180 I guess, and landed straight head first into the water, and there was a rock ledge there and I hit my head and broke 2 vertebrae in my neck, and I always remember at that time sort of floating face down in the water and not being able to move my arms and legs, so I guess I was drowning at the time, but fortunately one of the other teachers who was there saw a bit of blood coming out of the top of my head, and then obviously they dived in, turned me over, and I must have said that I couldn't feel anything, and then from there they knew what to do and left me on a ledge on the side of the pool there, or the creek, trying not to move my neck too much, and then from there they just called the ambos and flew me out to North Shore Hospital under the guise of Dr. John Yeo there. There was an experiment going on at the time that if people had a spinal or any spinal injury, if they could get them into a hyperbaric chamber, where a lot of oxygen was pumped into the bloodstream, the theory was that it would have assisted in the recovery of your injury. So they put me in there for about 4 or 5 hours within a certain time, and theoretically it may have assisted in my recovery, but they obviously didn't have enough people to go through it to make it something that was finally positive, but I put it down to John Yeo's initiative of doing that, and then I was able to walk out of hospital on sticks. I guess, at that time, maybe my neck was a bit stronger from playing football. That may have cushioned the injury a bit when I hit the rock ledge. And I think, fortunately, I had I'd done a lot of training, so that wasn't an issue when I was having to do occupational therapy or physiotherapy. That the exercise was something I loved doing, and I think that may have assisted in my recovery too. I guess after about 3 months, most of the physiotherapy and occupational therapy was done in the bed itself. Of course, you weren't allowed to get out of the bed. So I was in head traction for about 7 weeks. From there into a wheelchair, and then into occupational therapy, where they basically kept the limbs moving, not to let them become, not to lose, not a lot of wastage in the muscles, so they made sure the muscles were kept moving. And from there, I used to head down to the pool. There was an indoor heated pool at North Shore Hospital, and I used to do a lot of walking, or not walking at the time, but a lot of floating in there, and just passive movement of the arms and legs. And then I got a bit of feeling back, and from there, got back onto my feet and into a bit more aggressive exercise. And after about, I suppose, 3 months, I was allowed out, and then came back as an outpatient. Les Hobbs was probably one of the first people to ask me, do you want to do some extra training? And so I agreed, and Les had a little gym set up in his garage there, and beside his house was a set of stairs that ran down to the water at Drummoyne there. And when I used to train there, Les would religiously, push me to walk up and down those stairs, and not only doing that, but some exercises in his gymnasium. And I give him a lot of credence as to my recovery, to get the strength back into my legs and get that sort of walking coordination going. I had done my teaching degree, so I did go back to teaching, and I did that for the next 20 odd years, and I enjoyed it very much. I had I was married at the time. I had 2 lovely children. And I've got a granddaughter now. So over those 42 years, I've had a pretty good career with teaching. I gave that away, and then ended up doing a bit of accounting work for my friend's company, and I'm still doing that 2 days a week. I'm living here in God's country in Collaroy. I swim regularly, I train regularly. I catch up with a lot of the guys I used to play football with, who live in this area. So, looking back, no regrets. I've had a good, I'm not that old, I'm not dying yet, but I'm enjoying life, and it's had been a tough road at times, both physically and mentally. And to be honest, Stephen, I've had my mental issues. I've suffered from depression, and I've had a lot of work done in clinics. I've been to clinics, and I've got a good psychologist. And I've learnt, probably not just because of my injury, but I've just learnt that how important it is to talk to people, and to seek assistance when you do need it, and whether that be physically or mentally. In regards to my physical disability, and I'm not able to run anymore, and walking was always difficult. So swimming was the next step, where you've just got this ability to move in the water without any excess damage to your body. It's a smooth exercise, and the buoyancy is another benefit. So I got back into the water not long after I'd left hospital, and from there I've just kept swimming, and it's been a big part of my life over the last 42 years since my accident. I've been fortunate, been able to do a few ocean swims, we've done a few charity swims, and as I said this morning, we're doing this interview in wintertime, and the cold water that I love getting into is something that really just embraces me and makes the head clearer and obviously makes me feel better. So yeah, so it's been a big part of my life.